December 22nd, 2024, Vatican 3:45 a.m. The Vatican at dawn is smothered in an eerie silence. The cold corridors of St. Peter's Basilica exude a dense, almost supernatural air, as if the walls are steeped in centuries of secrets. I knew that this hour was the only time I could slip through the complex unnoticed. I, Father Gabriel Santoro, never imagined that my vow of faith would bring me to this moment. A priest, a servant of God, and now a traitor in the eyes of the church itself. I needed to uncover the truth, that cursed truth that shadowed me ever since I overheard the Pope's conversation with them. It was a night of confessions when I heard it through the thin wall of the sacristy. Hoarse, almost metallic voices whispering impossible promises. They weren't human, I knew it. The Pope, the holiest authority, was bargaining with beings that did not belong to this world. I hide behind a column as I hear footsteps. Damn, Swiss guards. I shouldn't be here, but the urgency burns within me. If I don't do this now, it might be too late. I take a deep breath, trying to steady my heartbeats, which echo in my ears like pounding drums. A thin line of sweat slides down my temple. It was 3 days ago that I received the first clue, an ancient scroll left anonymously in my quarters. It bore only a symbol, an eye encircled by a spiral, something I had never seen before. At the bottom, a single phrase in Latin, non est quod videtur. It is not what it seems. Was it a warning? A threat? Whatever it was, it led me here, at this very moment, on the verge of entering the forbidden chamber where no one was meant to tread. That night began like any other. I was in my small quarters, trying to pray, but my mind was restless. Then I heard a whisper on the other side of the door. I opened it slowly, and no one was there. Only an old, worn envelope lay on the floor. When I opened it, a chill ran down my spine. The handwriting was shaky, as if the author was gripped by panic. What I read left me stunned. They are coming. The Pope has sealed the deal. The price is too high. We cannot undo what has been done, but perhaps we can stop it from continuing. There was no signature, but the handwriting was unmistakable. It was from Monsignor Alvarez, one of the Pope's closest advisors who had, interestingly, disappeared months ago. I snapped back to the present as the guard's footsteps faded into the distance. I needed to move forward. The corridor led directly to the crypt, an area where only the Pope and his closest advisors had access. My hands trembled as I slid the access card I had borrowed from the late Monsignor Alvarez. What I found inside was beyond anything anyone could imagine. The air in the chamber was strangely cold, and a faint vibration made my teeth clench. In the center, there was a device that should not exist. It looked like a blend of advanced technology and ancient artifact, cables, symbols, pulsating lights. It was a fusion of alien metal and Latin inscriptions. I could hardly believe my eyes, and then I saw him. The Pope, kneeling before that metallic monstrosity, murmuring words that made no sense. It wasn't Latin, nor any human language I knew. Beside him, 3 tall, slender figures cloaked in black, like shadows come to life. They're already here, I thought. It was too late to turn back. Vatican Secret Chamber, 3:57 a.m. I needed to pull myself together, but my body felt paralyzed. Watching the Pope, the embodiment of faith for millions, kneeling before creatures from another world, it was a sight that tore my soul apart. It was beyond comprehension, a nightmare I never wanted to witness. My heart pounded as if trying to break free from my chest, and my breaths came out ragged, almost suffocating. There was no time for hesitation. I knew that if I were caught, it would be the end not just for me, but for any hope of exposing this monstrous conspiracy. Retreat was not an option. I had to understand what was happening before taking any action. That was when a cold, cutting voice echoed through the chamber. "You've finally arrived, Father Gabriel." Frozen in place, I watched the Pope lift his head, a cruel smile spreading across his lips. Something was wrong. His eyes, they had changed. Vertical pupils like those of a serpent. Beside him, one of the beings stepped forward, its body cloaked in black robes that seemed to absorb all light around them. A sharp, metallic smell filled the air. Before I could react, something pierced my skull like an electric current. An unbearable pain exploded behind my eyes, and I collapsed to my knees. A red beam of light flashed through the air, emanating from one of the creature's arms. It was as if they were trying to pry my mind open by force. I screamed, but the sound was drowned out by the crushing pressure enveloping me. "You should never have interfered, Gabriel." The Pope's voice echoed again, now sounding almost robotic, devoid of any human warmth. "Humanity stands on the brink of collapse, and this pact is its only salvation." The beam finally ceased, and I crumpled to the ground, gasping for air. With a Herculean effort, I managed to lift my gaze. That's when I began to grasp the true purpose of it all. An alien machine that resembled a portal, glowing with a pulsing bluish light. The symbols surrounding it were familiar. They were inscriptions dating back to the Dead Sea Scrolls, something I had studied in the church's secret archives. The idea that started forming in my mind was utterly insane. The Pope intended to use that technology to travel back in time and save Jesus Christ from crucifixion. The alien promise was grand, but the price was Earth itself, surrendered as a colony to these beings. I needed to act fast, but my vision was still blurry and my body exhausted. The pain in my head throbbed as if my mind had been torn out and shoved back in place. But at that moment, I saw an opening. When one of the aliens turned away, I reached for an old candelabrum that had fallen nearby. With a desperate cry, I lunged forward, plunging the object into its chest. The creature let out an ear-splitting scream, a sound that seemed to reverberate inside my own head, as if it was shattering. Red and green lights began flickering erratically on the device behind them. This was my chance. I grabbed the scroll hidden in my pocket and threw it into the machine, hoping that if I destroyed that key piece, it might disable the portal. The machine started to hiss and emit sparks. The ground trembled as if the Earth itself were trying to split open. The aliens, now in a frenzy, scrambled to stabilize the device, while the Pope barked orders in a language I had never heard before. I managed to reach the exit of the crypt, my body stumbling, as explosions erupted behind me. The portal was collapsing, and the metallic roar of the aliens was deafening. But then, I felt an impact on my back. The pain was instantaneous and searing. I stumbled, crashing face first onto the cold marble floor. I turned around to see the Pope, a twisted smile on his lips, holding an alien weapon in his hand. "Do you think you can thwart divine will, Gabriel?" he whispered, his voice now a grotesque blend of man and machine. I closed my eyes, the metallic taste of blood filling my mouth. Perhaps this was my end. Vatican underground corridors, 4:15 a.m. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to get up, to keep fighting. But, lying on the cold, blood-soaked floor, I could feel life slipping away. The Pope approached slowly, his face twisted into an insane grin. Each of his steps echoed like a death sentence, while he held that alien weapon glowing with a pale light. "You will never understand, Gabriel," he said, his voice echoing with an inhuman resonance. "This world was lost long before they arrived. I am merely hastening the inevitable." Suddenly, a deafening sound filled the corridor. The wall beside us exploded into a cascade of stone and dust. Two of the aliens emerged from the breach, their slender figures bathed in a red light. The portal was on the brink of total collapse, but they were still desperately trying to stabilize it, eager to complete the deal. What they didn't know was that I had memorized one final prayer, a secret hidden within the Dead Sea Scrolls that Alvarez had entrusted to me. It wasn't merely a prayer, but a key to sealing any dimensional portal, a kind of lock that could only be activated by a human, someone pure of heart. This was something the Pope never understood. The alien technology needed human faith to function, but not corrupted faith like his. As the Pope was distracted, barking orders at the creatures, I gathered every ounce of strength left in me and murmured the prayer. My hands trembled. The taste of blood in my mouth made each word a struggle to utter. The words in Aramaic were ancient, forgotten even by the church's most dedicated scholars, but I knew they were my last chance. The light around the portal began to flicker, shifting from blue to a deep crimson. The aliens realized what I was doing and rushed towards me, but I kept going. A searing pain tore through my chest as something pierced my flesh, a shot from the Pope's alien weapon. I screamed in agony but didn't stop. I couldn't stop. My faith, my true faith, was the last barrier between humanity and annihilation. The portal began to roar like a raging beast, sucking everything around it. the aliens screamed in despair, their voices turning into a metallic, discordant wail. The Pope tried to reach the device to interrupt my prayer, but it was too late. The light emanating from the portal intensified, blinding everything around, and then, in the blink of an eye, silence. When I finally opened my eyes, there was nothing but silence. The portal had vanished, leaving behind a charred void on the floor. The creatures, the Pope, the alien machine, everything had been swallowed. I was alone, lying on the ground, my body aching and soaked in blood. I looked at my hands, covered in dust and wounds, still trembling. For a moment, I thought I had won, that the nightmare was over. But then, a soft voice echoed behind me. "Well done, Father Gabriel. You truly are a man of faith." I turned with great effort and nearly screamed. It was Monsignor Alvarez, but something was different. His eyes, they were pitch black, devoid of iris or pupil. He smiled, but it was not a human smile. "Did you really think destroying the portal would solve everything?" he said, approaching slowly. "What you failed to understand, Gabriel, is that the Pope was never the true architect of this plan. He was merely another pawn on the board. That's when the true terror set in. Alvarez was not human. He never was. He was the mastermind behind everything, a traitor hidden among us, using faith as a weapon to manipulate the Pope and corrupt the Church from within. The destruction of the portal was only the beginning. He had made the real pact, not to save Jesus Christ, but to rewrite the very history of humanity. You failed, Father. With the portal destroyed, there's no way to stop what's coming. The pact has been sealed, and they are already here. I tried to stand, but my strength was gone. Blood flowed freely from my wounds, each movement a torture, but I couldn't give up. Even if Alvarez was right, even if the world was doomed, I had to do something. Then I remembered the last artifact Alvarez had given me months ago. A ring with a stone he claimed was a fragment of Christ's own cross. I never believed his story, until now. With the last of my strength, I lifted the ring and pressed it against Alvarez's chest. He let out a scream that seemed to tear through the very fabric of reality. The stone glowed with an intense golden light, burning through his flesh. His body began to contort, fracturing like a shattered mirror. His final words were a scream of hatred before his form disintegrated in a blinding burst of light. They tried to cover everything up, as expected. They claimed it was a terrorist attack, an explosion caused by extremists. But I knew the truth. The world was changing, and the forces unleashed that night were still out there, watching, waiting. I survived, but the cost was too high. My faith, once unshakable, was now in ruins. I knew that the true enemy was not flesh and blood, but something far older and more malevolent, masquerading as faith and devotion. The Vatican may have buried what happened, but I know it's not over. The war for humanity's soul has only just begun. And me? I am just a wounded man, but I'm determined to prevent them from taking what's ours. The price of truth is steep, but I am willing to pay it.